You ever notice how sometimes you don't want to feel better? Like someone offers you a solution, a distraction, a way out of the heaviness, and you just push it away? Yeah, you're not broken. You're human. And what you're experiencing, it has a name that philosophy has been wrestling with for centuries. Welcome to the paradox nobody talks about, the desire to be sad. And before you click away thinking this is some emo nostalgia trip, stick with me, because what I'm about to show you will completely reframe how you see your emotions, your pain, and maybe even your entire life. We live in a world that's terrified of sadness. Scroll through any social media feed, and it's the same message on repeat. Good vibes only. Choose happiness. Manifest your best life. And if you're not happy, well, there must be something wrong with you. Fix it. Medicate it. Smile through it. But here's the truth they don't want you to hear. Sadness isn't the enemy. The refusal to feel it is. In his book, The Denial of Death, Ernest Becker exposes how modern culture has built an entire fortress around avoiding discomfort, especially emotional discomfort. We've turned happiness into a product you can buy, a goal you can achieve, a moral obligation you owe society. And in doing that, we've created something far more dangerous than sadness itself: toxic positivity. The villain in this story isn't your sadness. It's the system that taught you to fear it. Drop real in the comments if you've ever felt guilty for not being happy enough. Here's where it gets wild. For thousands of years, the greatest minds in history, Aristotle, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, they didn't run from sadness. They celebrated it. They saw it as a doorway, a gift, a truth serum that cuts through the BS of everyday life. So why do we forget? And what happens when we remember? Hold that thought, because the answer is about to flip everything you thought you knew about emotions. Let's start with the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. This guy was the OG existentialist, writing in the 1800s about despair, anxiety, and the weight of being alive. And he said something radical. You cannot become who you truly are without confronting sadness. Think about that. Not feel sad and move on. Not process your trauma and get back to work. He's saying sadness is the confrontation, the mirror that shows you who you actually are beneath all the roles, the masks, the performance. In The Sickness Unto Death, Kierkegaard describes how we spend most of our lives avoiding ourselves. We distract, we perform, we conform, we become what others expect. And sadness is what breaks through that illusion. It forces you to sit with the question, who am I when nobody's watching? Martin Heidegger took this even further. He introduced the concept of being toward death, the idea that only when we face our mortality, our limits, our inevitable end, do we start living authentically. Sadness, in Heidegger's view, is the emotional experience of that confrontation. It's the feeling of realizing this life is finite. This moment matters. I can't waste it pretending anymore. Think about the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Joel and Clementine erase their memories to escape the pain of their failed relationship. But what happens? They're drawn back to each other because the sadness, the heartbreak, the messiness of it all, that was the relationship. Without the pain, there's no depth, no meaning, no truth. The desire to be sad isn't about wallowing. It's about refusing to erase the parts of you that are real. If this is hitting home, subscribe to this channel because we're just getting started. Now, let's talk about beauty. Because here's something most people don't realize. Sadness and beauty are inseparable. Aristotle figured this out over 2,000 years ago when he wrote about catharsis in tragedy. He noticed that when people watched tragic plays, stories of suffering, loss, death, they didn't leave feeling worse. They left feeling cleansed, elevated, connected to something greater than themselves. Why? Because sadness reveals fragility. It shows us the preciousness of what we have, because it can be lost. A sunset is beautiful because it fades. Love is profound because it's vulnerable. Life is sacred because it ends. Arthur Schopenhauer, the king of philosophical pessimism, wrote in The World as Will and Representation that suffering is the fundamental truth of existence. But here's the twist. He also said that through art, music, and aesthetic experience, we can transcend that suffering for brief, glorious moments. We see the beauty through the pain, not despite it. Think about the movie Inside Out. The entire plot revolves around Riley learning that sadness isn't a glitch in the system, it's essential. Joy tries to control everything, to keep Riley happy. But it's only when sadness is allowed to exist, to be felt, that Riley's memories gain depth. That connection, empathy, and growth become possible. The psychologist Susan David explores this in her book, Emotional Agility. She argues that emotions aren't good or bad, they're data. Sadness tells you what matters. It's your soul's way of saying, this is important, don't look away. And when you do look, you find meaning in the cracks. Drop death in the comments if you've ever found beauty in something sad, a song, a memory, a goodbye. Here's where it gets political. Because the desire to be sad isn't just personal, it's resistance. Theodor Adorno, a 20th century philosopher and cultural critic, saw sadness as a form of quiet rebellion against what he called the culture industry, the machine that turns everything, even your emotions, into a product. Happiness became something you could buy, a vacation, a purchase, a self-help book, a pill, and the system needed you to keep buying. But sadness? Sadness doesn't sell. You can't monetize melancholy. You can't package depth. You can't hustle through grief. So the system pathologizes it. It tells you sadness is a disease, a failure, a flaw. And if you insist on feeling it, you're broken. You're not optimizing. You're not productive. In Minima Moralia, Adorno writes that holding on to sadness, refusing to plaster on a fake smile, is an act of defiance. It says, I will not be commodified. I will not perform happiness for your comfort. I will feel what is real. The movie Her captures this beautifully. Theodore falls in love with an AI, and when she leaves, he's devastated. But in that final scene, sitting on the rooftop with Amy, they don't try to fix each other. They just sit in the sadness together. And that shared vulnerability, that's where the healing begins. In a world screaming at you to be okay, choosing to not be okay is revolutionary. Subscribing takes 2 seconds and helps this message reach someone who needs to hear it. Don't scroll past. And now, the philosopher who shook the entire Western world, Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche didn't just accept suffering, he demanded it. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." But it's not a motivational Instagram quote. It's a philosophy of transformation. Nietzsche believed that suffering was the crucible in which greatness was forged. Not the avoidance of pain, but the embrace of it. That's what separates those who merely exist from those who truly live. He called it amor fati, the love of fate, the radical acceptance of everything life throws at you, including especially the suffering. In his book, The Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche contrasts 2 Greek gods, Apollo the god of order and reason, and Dionysus, the god of chaos, ecstasy, and suffering. He argues that true art, true life, requires both. You can't have the beauty of Apollo without the chaos of Dionysus. You can't have joy without sorrow. The movie The Shawshank Redemption embodies this. Andy Dufresne endures 2 decades of suffering, injustice, and brutality. But he doesn't become bitter. He transforms. Every act of defiance, every moment of hope is forged in that fire. And when he finally escapes, you realize he wasn't just escaping prison. He was becoming who he was always meant to be. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning. Not that you should seek suffering, but when it comes, and it will, you can choose what it makes of you. The desire to be sad is the soul's way of saying, I'm not running, I'm staying, I'm becoming. Share your story below. When has sadness transformed you? So let's bring it all together. Why do we desire sadness? Why do we sometimes push away the very things that could make us feel better? Because deep down, we know something the culture of forced happiness doesn't. Wholeness isn't the same as happiness. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, talked about this concept of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject, deny, suppress. And he said that you can't become whole by only accepting the light. You have to integrate the darkness too. In Man and His Symbols, Jung writes that the goal isn't to be happy all the time. It's to be complete, to know yourself fully, the joy and the sorrow, the strength and the fragility, the triumphs and the failures. That's individuation. That's becoming who you actually are. And sadness? Sadness is the teacher that shows you the hidden parts of yourself. The parts that care too much, that loved too deeply, that hoped too boldly. It's not weakness. It's proof that you're alive. Brené Brown explores this in The Gifts of Imperfection. She argues that vulnerability, which includes sadness, grief, and fear, is the birthplace of connection, creativity, and meaning. You can't selectively numb emotions. When you numb the bad, you numb the good too. The movie Manchester by the Sea doesn't give you a happy ending. Lee Chandler doesn't get over his grief, but he learns to carry it, to live alongside it, to let it be part of his story without letting it be the only story. That's what the desire to be sad is really about. It's the refusal to delete chapters of your life just because they hurt. It's the courage to be whole. Here's the thing. The system needs you to be afraid of sadness. Because if you're not, you stop consuming, you stop performing, you stop pretending. You start asking questions. You start living authentically. You start prioritizing meaning over productivity. And that's dangerous. Not to you, to the machine. So when you feel that pull towards sadness, when you find yourself drawn to melancholy music, bittersweet memories, quiet reflection, don't pathologize it. Don't rush to fix it. Listen to it. Because your sadness is not a malfunction. It's your soul demanding to be heard. If this video made you think, feel, or see your emotions differently, I need you to do 3 things. 1, drop whole in the comments if you're done pretending to be okay all the time. 2, subscribe to this channel. We're building a community that chooses depth over distraction, truth over performance. And 3, share this with someone who needs permission to feel. Because in a world that profits from your numbness, feeling deeply is an act of revolution. The desire to be sad is not a cry for help. It's a refusal to lie. It's a commitment to truth. It's a love letter to the full, messy, tragic, beautiful experience of being human. Stop running from your sadness. It's trying to show you something. And maybe, just maybe, it's trying to show you who you really are.